Hello, Steve.
Hello, John.
Hi, mate.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul.
All right, cheers, John.
There you go. That's just Dad. You can just do all exactly the same with Dad.
Where are you in the order? Well, if you can do your signatures about there.
I have to leave it open for a while.
I started here, went right to the left.
Oh, you want to go there?
I went here and went right rather than left.
Here we go. Yeah, that's fine.
Boy, this pen is it smudges a bit.
Yeah, that's why we thought these are.
Get the other one.
Thank you very much.
I'm signing with this book. I've been a Pompey fan for 50 odd years and been involved in a number of publications, but I've never had the responsibility of pulling one together. It was an immense privilege to do it, and one of the ways in which you can pull together a project like this, with the number of moving parts that you've got in it, is you have to have a great team around you, and that was the idea with the team of authors that we put together. Jerry was a Pompey fan since 1959. He was at the University of Portsmouth Polytechnic, as it was back in the day in the 1970s, before he moved away to Cambridge, and he had a very successful career as a hydrologist with Anglian Water. But I got involved with Jerry because he was interested particularly in the Pompey Champions of England project, and I invited him to write a couple of chapters in that book, and those of you that have perhaps seen that book will kind of know that Jerry had a meticulous eye for detail in terms of what he did. And similarly, once we were going to be putting together the book here for the 125th, he was the obvious choice for me to do the chapter in the 1920s and the 1930s, because he had a particular interest in that era.
When I look back on my business career, my time with Bishops, and all the work we've done with the club over the years, everything's massively intertwined. So, you know, when I was only in my very early 20s, I did a presentation in another lounge to launch that centenary book, and I've got very fond memories of that. We supported the club through thick and thin. Occasionally it's felt like thin and thinner. But it's always been an absolute pleasure.
No, I mean, obviously a great honour to have played for the club for so long. Very lucky to have obviously played for as long as I did, but even more so to obviously play for this club and for these supporters. I mean, I know everyone says it and not being sycophantic, but they are, to me, the best supporters in the country, if not the world.
I'm going with Colin Farmery, who's the editor of the official Portsmouth Football Club 120th anniversary. It's an amazing achievement, Colin. Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and all the authors. Tell me about the book and how it's come about.
Well, I think, you know, when the 125th anniversary of the club was coming up, we wanted to make sure that we did something special for it. I think when we had our centenary in 1998, I think there was a feeling it was a little bit of a damp squib in that way, although we did produce a fantastic history book for that particular anniversary. But really, when I sat down with the guys at Bishops and the football club as well, what we wanted to produce was something that did this magnificent football club justice, that would be something that fans will be proud to have on their coffee table or on their bookshelves. But above all, we wanted the content to be great. We wanted it to be a definitive history. I particularly had a passion for wanting to use photographs well and using pictures in the book well. And we wanted to make sure we got the stats right in the back of it, and I think by and large it's mission accomplished.
Yeah, it's a marvellous book. The colorisation of the early Portsmouth photographs. I've got to say, when I opened it, I was astonished by the colorisation and the use of the photographs is brilliant. I saw things in there I'd never seen before.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the key thing, is that one of the things, there are quite a few Pompey books out there and a couple of entire histories of the club, but we really tried hard to make sure we found pictures that were new, or as we did with the colorisations, do a new twist on an old theme in that way, and I couldn't agree more. I think some of the colorisations that were done by Andy Imrie and Ed Emptage, my two colorisers, some of them were just sublime. I mean, one of my favourite ones is the picture of the FA Cup being presented to Jimmy Guthrie in 1939. That was a particular favourite of mine. But throughout, there's just some beautiful work in there, and particularly with photographs pre sort of 1990, using colorization really brings a black and white world to life, really, in lots of ways, and puts a new spin on it.
Okay, so Neil Allen, Chief Sports Writer with the News in Portsmouth, and one of the authors of the Portsmouth 125th Centenary book. So, how does it feel to be here on this day, and what was your contribution?
I'll say I had the easy part. I was phenomenally lucky, really, because I covered from 1999 to the present day, of which all but 99 and 2000 season I've been at the News. So it's very easy for me because I've lived it, I've reported on it, still quite fresh in the mind as well. So for me, I mean, some of the other guys, they've covered eras when their dads weren't alive, let alone them, and they've struggled really to fill seasons and stretch it out. I had too much things to write. I was trying to restrict it to 1,000 words a season, and at times that was really quite hard because so much going on, particularly with the off-field, with what was going on with the ownership and things like that. And then you've got the good seasons, which is the promotion season when Michael Doyle's skipping Pompey to the League Two title, but then you've got a lot to write. So I was quite fortunate in that way. But and also just naturally, the modern day information is more out there. I can go to the archives a lot easier. So I had the easiest job out of all these chaps. So for the guys that were covering periods when they weren't alive and you're struggling for information and it's not out there, it's difficult for them. But for me, I think I was all right. So
right. And with Steve Bone, who's the sports editor of Sussex newspapers, we used to work together at the News, and he's a lifelong Pompey fan like myself. What was your involvement in this fantastic book?
Thank you for saying it's fantastic. We've had some good feedback about it. So my role was to write 1/5 of the story, really. Colin Farmery, the editor, asked me if I would write the section that covered the John Deacon years and the Gregory years. So kind of 1973 to 1999. I have written about, I think it comes in about 20,000 words, telling the story of those eras. So the ebb and flow of the different seasons, the characters that came and went, what was going on in the boardroom, the promotions and the relegations, because I think in those 26 years we had 3 promotions, 3 relegations, so there was lots going on at those times. And I've just tried to retell the story, maybe in a slightly different way to how it's been told before.
You played with some fantastic lads.
So again, really difficult to pick out who would be the best one, but if push given shove, I would say Paul Walsh.
Oh, wow.
We'll go for Walsh probably. Very lucky to have seen him. Last obviously I didn't play with, but was coaching at the time. We'd be looking at Prosinecki. Even at that tender age he was here, you could see the class of the player. And then you have the Mercers of the world, Paul Merson, Teddy Sheringham.
That year was the best counter-attacking thing we ever had, I think. The Mercers there.
Yeah, that group of players were something special. I mean, Shaka in goal. I was lucky to be coaching those keepers like Shaka over Sturmacek, Dave Bessett was here at the time, around about that time. Yoshi, I know Yoshi got some stick. Yoshi was a great professional. So yeah, no, as I say, all the way along the back where you had Steve Stone, Marianne Dezoe, all them guys, they were fantastic. It's hard to pick one out from that group, really difficult.
We had some pretty good times covering the News, and for me the FA Cup final was a highlight. In your time covering the News, and how many years have you been covering them now? 20.
I moved to the News in November 2000.
So 23 years you've been here.
Yeah.
What was in that time? Is the cup final run the highlight, or
no? My highlight is beating Chum 6-1 at Fratton Park. in May 2017. Simply because Colin was saying it was just a phenomenal day because Pompey went to that game third in the league. No one even thought about winning the title. They'd already been promoted. And to actually top the table for the last 31 minutes of the season, that's all they were top of the table. To win 6-1 and win the league title that day was phenomenal. At Fratton Park, everyone invaded the pitch. And it was also, we've been through those awful years of maybe reporting on court cases where Pompey could have been liquidated, 23 games without a win, just battling against these charlatans and crooks. And we've been, I think you appreciate the highs more when you've been at the lowest. And Pompey had been to the lowest, we've been on that journey. And then suddenly you win League Two, and that was the high. That was the journey on the way back. Phenomenal day. And I remember Bunky Bowers was there in the press box as well that day. And we embraced, because we've seen it a lot. All that journey as well through various times, working together and all sorts, and staying as friends, and it was just a truly emotional day. So that is my favourite memory of covering Pompey to date, anyway.
The 70s were a really grim time for Pompey. I mean, there were some good players came through, but generally the club and the team struggled, and most seasons in the 70s were either bottom half finish and relieved to stay up, or a real relegation battle. And obviously there were two relegations in 3 seasons that took us down from Division 2 to Division 4. When John Deacon had come in 1973, his ambition was very much to get us straight back into Division 1, so he went the wrong way. Deacon and Jim Gregory after him, I think, both found that the job of getting Pompey back to the big time was much, much bigger and much, much more expensive than they imagined it would be. A lot of Pompey chairmen, before them and after them as well, have found the same thing, I think. So there's a bit of a theme running through. But yeah, having written about the 70s, it was quite nice to then go on to the 80s, which I remembered much more, having been a Pompey fan since 81. 3 promotions in 8 seasons. Went from Division 4 under Frank Burrows up to Division 3, from 3 to 2 under Bobby Campbell, and then of course famously from 2 to 1 under Alan Ball and the Gremlins and that great team that we all remember. That people still talk about now. 1 or 2 of them have been here at this event tonight, so which is nice to see. The whole spectrum really, the highs and the lows. I think what you'll find in this book is that there are highs and lows in each of the eras that we've written about. So great to relive them and to partly bring them back to life.
Never a dull moment at Fratton Park.
There's not, is there? No. Even in a season where we're in mid-table, there'll be some drama off the field.
Yeah.
Pompey always seem to be threatening to do really well and to win the title, or threatening to implode and collapse and be relegated. There's no sort of happy medium there. It's the way what keeps bringing us back, I suppose.
Yeah, it's exactly why we love them.
It is, yeah, and it's what makes this book such a... Yeah, there's not a page in the book where there's not some sort of drama unfolding before your eyes. So hopefully we've done the story justice.
And I'll do another one.
Yeah. Like I always said, from local lads with people I did.
And it's the team at that time.
Yeah, and, great. It's been some players that have come through from there. Like obviously James Will-Press down at Southampton, Mason and that, Steve Claridge and Liam Dace and people like that. And I feel that I've had a great time.
Yeah, that's it.
So I've done everything that I wanted to achieve. At the first one was to play for Pompey. Second one was to play at all the top grounds.
Yeah.
Third one was to play in the first division, the old first division. Right. Then it was to play for England and then play the FA Cup final, which it was unfortunate we could have played against Pompey in the final that year. So,
funny how it could have went down.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is at the end of the day, I think the Mike Neeson book in 1984 was a fantastic achievement, and kind of like Mick Cooper contributed to that as well. The centenary history, I think, took it on to another level in that way, slightly different approach in that one. And I think we've moved it forward with this book. I think the design work is very much of its time. It's very contemporary kind of feel to it. But I think it's a book that won't date. I think that you will be able to look at this book in 25 years' time, and when the guys who are doing the job that I did in that time, I think they'll use that as a benchmark, and yeah, and I'm sure there'll be other stories to tell. They would tell it in the style of whatever 25 years time is going to be. But yeah, I'm just very proud now to have played a part in not one but two fantastic Pompey histories. You know, you can't ask for much more than that, really. And the fact that one of the authoring team, Jerry Spraggs, the fact that he sadly died recently, but what a legacy he kind of leaves with the work he did for his particular chapter. So yeah, it's a bit of an emotional night, really. But yeah, Portsmouth's a fantastic football club, and we've got fantastic supporters, and hopefully we'll have another great story to tell at the end of this season.